I never expected to share this story, let alone reveal it so openly. But what happened with Ethan taught me something sharp and painfully simple. Sometimes you don't realize how much someone matters until you're standing on the edge of losing them. I'm Ryan, a sophomore communications major at a big state university in the Midwest, where fall smells like ripe apples, dry leaves, and the tired groan of campus shuttle buses. My life before him was quiet and predictable classes, the library, my tiny dorm room, and occasional hangouts with friends. Without Ethan, it probably would have stayed that way. Safe, muted, and honestly a little dull. Ethan was the kind of person who could walk down a hallway and draw attention without even trying. Tall, dark hair with a slight wave, deep brown eyes that always seemed to be guarding a story he wasn't ready to tell. He was a psychology major who moved like he was chasing something only he could see. We met in Intro to Media when the professor told us to pair up. I was about to choose someone else when Ethan slid into the seat beside me, nudged his notebook between us, and said calmly, "I think we'd work well together." At the time, I had no idea what he meant. I was the quiet one, the guy who loved routine and hated standing out. Ethan was the opposite, loud laugh, easy smile, involved in 3 clubs at once, even hosting a tiny campus radio show on Friday nights. But the more we worked together, the more I saw past that confidence. Underneath it was someone sensitive and a little uncertain. Like his bright smile was armor covering a space he didn't want anyone to see. We became close without meaning to. Study nights in the library turned into long walks around campus talking about everything and nothing.
Hack the burnt campus.
Cafe coffee. The odd patterns he noticed in his social psychology research, and how people fall in and out of love for reasons nobody understands. He talked the most. I listened, adding a thought here and there. Somehow, he told me I was the only person he didn't feel the need to perform for. One early October night, when the air had turned sharp and campus felt half asleep, Ethan dragged me to the empty football stadium. He climbed the bleachers, sat down, and tapped the spot beside him. We stared out at the dark field for so long, I could hear individual leaves hitting the ground. "You know," he said, voice barely above the wind, "sometimes I feel like I've been running my whole life, so I don't have to stop and face what I actually want." "What do you want?" He just smiled a smile that made me uneasy, like he was standing behind a door he wasn't ready to open. Lately he'd been different. He'd hold my gaze a moment too long, drift off mid-sentence, change the topic whenever I asked how he was really doing. I tried not to overthink it, mostly because I didn't know what I was feeling either. All I knew was that whenever his hand brushed my shoulder, my heart reacted in ways I couldn't ignore. Then one day in November, everything shifted. Ethan didn't show up to class, didn't answer his texts. At first I thought he was busy with club work, but when the professor called his name, and our mutual friend said no one had seen him since the night before, a cold dread crept up my spine. I called him again twice. No answer. Ethan didn't just vanish. A light, steady rain had started, wind rattling the trees around campus. By the time I realized I was actually running it, felt like my legs had taken over for me. One thought pounded in my head again and again. "Ethan, where are you?" Only then did I understand how deep the fear of losing him truly went. And maybe that was the first moment I admitted to myself that what I felt for him had stopped. Being just friendship a long time ago, I found him in a place that still tightens my chest every time I remember it. After almost an hour of running through the rain, I spotted his familiar gray hoodie hanging over the railing of the old East Storm, the one shut down for renovations. The ground floor door was cracked open, groaning every time the wind pushed it against the frame like a tired sigh. I stepped inside, breath shaky. It was darker than outside, thick with the smell of damp dust and rotting wood. I called his name. My voice sounded small, like it belonged to someone else. "Ethan, are you in here?" No answer, only the slow drip of water somewhere above. I climbed the stairs one cautious step at a time, each creak sounding like it might be the last. Panic tightened around my ribs until I had to stop midway and force air back into my lungs. On the second floor, I saw him by the window. His shadow stretched long and distorted across the warped floorboards. Streetlight cut through the glass, dividing his face into sharp halves of light and dark. When he turned toward me, I knew instantly something was wrong. "Ryan," he said, voice raw from crying. "I'm sorry I disappeared." I walked over slowly and sat beside him, feeling like I was approaching something fragile that could shatter if I moved too fast. "What happened?" I asked, trying to sound steadier than I felt. He was silent for a long time. Then he whispered, "I got scared, Ryan." My heart sank. "Scared of what?" He swallowed hard, gaze drifting. "Of myself. Of this feeling. Of what happens if I say it out loud and everything between us breaks. I don't want to lose you." The room seemed to shift not from fear, but from recognition. He was saying everything I had been hiding. "Why would you think I'd leave?" I asked gently. He let out a tired, bitter laugh. "Who'd want to stay with someone like me?" I thought I was fine, but the closer we got, the less sense anything made. "I don't know why I miss you when you're not around. Why it hurts seeing you talk to other people." It felt stupid. Then it felt terrifying. His voice cracked as he turned away to hide more tears. For the first time, I saw how long he'd been carrying this weight alone. I reached out and touched his shoulder. He didn't pull away. "I thought something happened to you," I said slowly, every word heavy. "I've been running across campus all day looking for you." That fear, it stripped everything else away. All I could think was that I can't lose you. He looked at me with wide, fragile eyes. "Ryan, what are you saying?" I held his gaze 20 years old, full of contradictions. Scared and steady at the same time, looking at someone I cared for far more than I'd ever allowed myself to admit. "I don't have everything figured out," I said, my voice trembling. "But I know this. I worry about you in a way friends don't. And today, when I thought something might have happened, I realized this isn't just friendship anymore." He stared at me for what felt like a lifetime, like each word was rewriting something inside him. Then slowly, deliberately, he leaned over and rested his head on my shoulder. "Ryan, thank you for finding me." Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside that crumbling room, we sat close quiet in a way that felt charged instead of empty. The kind of silence that makes your heart beat loud because you know something irreversible just shifted. Later, after I walked him back to his dorm, I sat in the chair beside his bed like a guard dog, scared he'd vanish again if I looked away. He took a hot shower, changed into sweats, crawled under the blankets, but sleep wouldn't come. His brown eyes caught the dim lamplight, full of thoughts he wasn't sure he was allowed to voice. "I'm okay now," he whispered. "You don't have to stay and watch over me." "I'm not watching over you," I lied. We both knew it already. "I just want to stay a little longer," I murmured. He gave a small, shaky laugh. "I'm glad you came looking, but I hate that I scared you." I watched his hands clutch the blanket, trembling just enough to show how raw he felt. The confident, easygoing Ethan I knew had stepped out of his armor, revealing someone soft and painfully honest beneath a tan somehow. It hurt in the best, most human way. "Ethan," I said gently, "you don't bother me?" "Not ever." He stayed quiet for a moment, then pulled in a deep breath. I've never felt what I felt today, like something was crushing me. I thought if I faced the SIF, I admitted I like you more than a friend. Should I'd lose you for good? My heart stuttered, but I held steady so he could keep going. "I don't know when it started," he said softly. "Maybe the day you laughed when I spilled coffee everywhere. Or when you handed me your jacket because the weather flipped. Or when you told me about your family, about feeling like you weren't enough. I hate that needing someone feels so intense that even a few hours apart feels wrong." I didn't interrupt. I just listened. "I thought something was wrong with me," he whispered. "That I should run from it. Stay away from you." But the more I tried, the harder it was. I shifted closer until only a breath separated us. "There's nothing wrong with you," I said. "Feelings don't have an off switch, and you don't have to be afraid of them. Not when he lifted his head, eyes wide, waiting. "When I don't see you as just a friend either." The room went still. Completely still. He froze, lips parting like he wasn't sure he heard right. I smiled, awkward, relieved, terrified. I'm not ready to throw a big label on it yet, I said quietly, but I care about you more than normal. Way more than group project partners. He sat up a little straighter, eyes brighter, even through the redness. Ryan? I know, I whispered. It's scary, but you don't have to face any of it alone. And if there's anyone worth figuring all this out for, it's you. He looked at me like I'd opened a locked door inside him. Then, slowly and almost afraid to break the moment, he reached out. Can I hold your hand? He asked so quietly only I could hear. I nodded. His fingers threaded through mine, warm, trembling. He squeezed gently, like too much pressure might shatter everything we'd just said out loud. But to me, that small grip felt stronger than anything. We sat there for a long time, hands intertwined, no words needed. Something had shifted completely. Neither of us was hiding anymore. Near midnight, he shifted and whispered, Ryan, I'm scared I'll ruin everything if I move too fast. It's okay, I told him. We'll go slow. As slow as we need to? His smile then was real soft and honest. Thank you for not giving up on me today. I'll never give up on you, I said. Ever. And right then, it hit me clearer than anything else. Almost losing Ethan didn't just force me to face my feelings. It made me realize some people come into your life, and you just know you'll fight to keep them no matter what in the days after. Everything between us shifted in the quietest, most unfamiliar way. No big declarations, no cinematic moment, just a gentle slide into something new with every glance and every accidental touch. We crossed a line we both knew we couldn't uncross, and neither of us wanted to. The next morning, he sat beside me and lectured like always. But when the professor started explaining the next project, Ethan pressed his knee against mine under the desk light, intentional. He didn't look at me, just stared at his laptop, though the corner of his mouth, tugged into a smile, meant only for me. You free tonight? He asked once class ended. Depends on what you're thinking, I said, trying to sound casual. He shrugged. Nothing big. I just want to see you. No reason, no excuse. That simple sentence melted something inside me that night. We met at the empty outdoor basketball court, cold wind, white floodlights scattering across the pavement. He handed me a can of soda. We sat close enough that leaving space between us didn't feel necessary anymore. Ryan, he said, his voice lower than usual. I've thought about it a lot, he said softly. I want to try. Slowly. But I want to. I met his eyes, serious, hopeful, a little fragile. I want to, too, I said honestly. I don't know if I'll get everything right, but I want to be with you. He laughed bright, clear, relieved. Good, because I'm really tired of hiding. We fell into an easy silence after that. Then he leaned in until our shoulders touched. The night was freezing, but that small point of contact felt warm enough to melt the cold. I didn't want it to fade. The days slipped into a comfortable rhythm. Lunch together, study sessions in the library. He'd wait for me outside every classroom, leaning against the wall with his hands in his pockets, giving me that tiny nod like it was the most natural thing in the world. We stayed careful around others, not out of shame, but because everything still felt delicate. Like a new thread that needed time to strengthen. Still, friends noticed. They'd tease you to have been glued together lately. Ethan would just smirk and say nothing unusual. But when it was just the two of us at night, his walls came down. He talked more about his fears, the feelings he'd shoved into the dark. He told me about an old relationship that had left him wrecked, how he was terrified he'd never be enough for anyone. I listened, letting him release everything he'd been carrying alone for too long. One late-month night, we climbed to the roof of the Dharma place students definitely weren't supposed to go. But Ethan had a gift for finding ways in. We sat on the warm brick ledge, looking out at campus glowing soft yellow beneath the lights. Do you regret that night? He asked quietly. Why would I? He stared down at his hands. I'm scared I'll wear you out. I took his hand. Ethan, I chose you. I choose staying. Stop telling yourself you're a burden. I'm here because I want to be, not because I feel like I have to. He looked up, eyes shining with something new and vulnerable. I choose you too, Ryan. Let the wind take the rest. No more words needed. The silence between us had become its own language when only we spoke. When we left the roof that night, he held my hand in the dark hallway. No more hiding. For the first time, the future didn't feel blurry. It felt warm. It smelled like him. It sounded like our footsteps side by side. Things between us kept growing slow, steady, real. But not every day was soft. The weeks that followed taught us that loving someone doesn't mean you automatically know how to reach their sharp edges without cutting yourself. The semester rushed by faster than either of us expected. Deadlines, presentations, group projects, pressure from every direction. Ethan was juggling his shifts at the student counseling center in his weekend radio slot. I was buried under my advanced comms final. We still saw each other, still texted, still stole handholds when we could, but exhaustion was starting to seep in. One Thursday night, after submitting my paper, I went to his room. He opened the door looking drained, eyes shadowed, face tight. His desk was a mess, scattered papers, highlighters, cold cup of coffee. "I thought you'd be asleep," I said. "Wish I was," he sighed. "Research paper, due tomorrow." I stepped closer and rested my hand on his shoulder. "How long have you been at it?" 3 hours, he muttered, avoiding my eyes. "I'm trying to focus, but my head's a mess." I knew what he wasn't saying. He'd just come down from a quiet anxiety spike, the little signs only someone paying attention would notice. "Ethan," I said softly, "you don't have to pretend you're fine all the time." He froze for just a second, but it was enough. "I don't want to lean on you too much," he whispered like the words themselves scared him. "I don't want to be the reason you're tired." I pulled up a chair, sat directly in front of him, and met his eyes. "Listen to me," I said gently. "You are not a burden. Letting me see you struggle doesn't drain me. What drains me is watching you try to carry everything alone." His brown eyes trembled, filling with emotion. "I'm scared, Ryan." The next morning, I woke up with the kind of ache that comes from sleeping too little but feeling too much. My phone buzzed before my alarm. Ethan made it to class. Barely alive. Coffee pulls. I smiled into my pillow. Me, on it. "Don't die before I get there," by the time I reached the humanities building. He was slumped against the wall outside the lecture hall, hood up, hair a mess. Looking like someone who'd fought a battle and lost but was still somehow standing. When he saw me, his whole face softened. "You're a lifesaver," he mumbled, reaching for the cup. Our fingers brushed light, familiar, electric in a way that didn't startle me anymore. "How'd the paper go?" I asked. He sipped. "I'll find out when the professor either praises me or gently suggests I drop out." I bumped his shoulder. "You worked your ass off." "You did good." He didn't argue, which felt like its own tiny victory as students filtered past. We drifted closer to each other, shoulders almost touching but not quite. The air between us felt steady, like we were learning how to exist in public without hiding, but without broadcasting either. A quiet kind of together. Before he went inside, he hesitated. "You'll be at the station tonight." "Wouldn't miss it." He nodded, relieved in a way he didn't bother disguising anymore. That night, at the radio station, Ethan always looked different behind the studio glass. More confident, more himself, like the mic gave him permission to be honest in ways he struggled with face to face. I sat on the couch in the corner, watching him through the window as he adjusted the knobs and took a breath. His voice drifted into the booth speaker's calm. Warm, familiar. I closed my eyes just to listen. After the last song on his playlist faded, Ethan leaned forward, speaking softer than usual. "Before I sign off," he said, "I want to say something. Tonight's been heavy for a lot of people. For me too." He paused. "But sometimes you find someone who makes the heaviness easier to carry. Someone who reminds you to keep moving forward." My chest tightened. This song is for anyone who's learning how to let themselves be loved. And for the person who showed up tonight, thanks for staying. He clicked the button to start the next track, and through the glass he met my eyes. There was no hiding in his expression, just quiet truth. Offered without fear, I walked in as the music played, closing the door behind me. "You talking about me?" I teased, voice soft. He didn't smile. Not at first. Instead, he reached out, tugged lightly at my sleeve. I meant every word, he said. I'm trying, Ryan. I know, I told him. And I see you. He exhaled shakily, then leaned his forehead against my temple in a gesture that felt more intimate than a kiss. We stayed like that until the song ended. A few days later, stress began to settle again. It's just as real life always does. But something between us had shifted, subtle but solid. He was quicker to tell me when he was overwhelmed. I didn't hesitate to show up when he spiraled. We were clumsy, imperfect, sometimes tense, sometimes tired. But honest. One evening after a long study session, we sat on a campus bench watching students rush past. The sky was turning purple, and the chill was getting sharper. Ethan nudged my knee. So, winter break. Are you staying on campus? Probably, I said. Cheaper than flying home. And you? He swallowed, cheeks pink knot from the cold. My parents invited me home, but I don't want to go alone. I turned to him. You want me there? He nodded without looking at me. I know it's a lot. I know it's early, but I want you to meet the parts of my life I used to avoid showing anyone. It hit me then. Every step with him wasn't just closeness. It was trust. Carefully offered, never demanded. I reached for his hand. He let me take it. Okay, I said. We'll go together. Breathe out, half laugh, half relief. You're sure? I wouldn't say yes if I wasn't. He leaned into me, shoulder pressed to mine, warm and certain. The future didn't feel foggy anymore. Just open wide and real and a little terrifying. But for the first time, we weren't walking toward it alone. Winter break came quicker than either of us expected. The night before we left, we met outside the dorms, our bags packed. The campus nearly silent under a thin veil of snow. Ethan's breath curled in the cold air as he walked toward me, cheeks flushed from the wind. You ready? He asked. Yeah, I said. You. He hesitated, and for a moment I thought he might change his mind. But then he slipped his gloved hand into mine, the soft, sure kind of touch he only managed when he wasn't overthinking. Yeah, he whispered. I think I am. The bus ride out of town was quiet but comfortable. His shoulder pressed against mine as the world blurred past the window's streetlights. Snowy roofs, the slow stretch of highways leading somewhere unfamiliar but not frightening. Not anymore. Halfway there, Ethan rested his head against me. You know, he murmured, I used to hate long rides. Too much time to think, and now? He smiled without lifting his head. Now it feels different. Easier. I threaded my fingers through his. We'll take it one piece at a time, together. He closed his eyes, letting the hum of the engine settle around us when we arrived. His family's house glowed with warm lights against the dark. I felt his hand tense in mine, just a small twitch, but enough to know he was bracing himself. I'm right here, he said. He nodded. Inside, the welcome was cautious but kind. His mom hugged him tight. His dad shook my hand, studying me in that quiet, protective way parents have. There were awkward pauses, unsure smiles, small attempts at conversation that felt like stepping stones across unfamiliar water. But through it all, Ethan stayed close, never clinging, never hiding. Just there, present, unafraid to stand beside me. That night, after everyone went to bed, we sat together on the back porch, wrapped in borrowed blankets. The yard stretched out in silver blue under the moonlight, crisp and quiet. Ethan exhaled, watching his breath drift upward. I never thought I'd bring someone home, he admitted. I never thought I'd want to. I squeezed his hand. I'm glad you did. He turned toward me, eyes soft in the dark, less guarded than I had ever seen them, full of something tender and certain. Ryan, he said quietly, I'm not perfect. I'll probably always overthink. I'll probably always be a little scared. That's okay, I told him. I'm not here for perfect. I'm here for you. His voice trembled just a little. Then, I think, this might actually last. I leaned my forehead against his. It will, I said, because we're choosing it. Every day. He smiled, the kind that didn't flare bright but settled warm and steady. like a light that doesn't burn out. And in that quiet winter air, with the cold biting at our faces, the blanket pulling us close, and the world holding its breath around Usai, realized something simple and true. What we had wasn't loud or dramatic or flawless. It wasn't a fairy tale or a movie moment. It was two people learning how to stay, to listen, to show up even when it wasn't easy. It was real. It was ours, and it was enough. Ethan laced our fingers together, slow and sure. "Come inside," he whispered. "You must be freezing." "I'm not," I said, smiling as I stood with him. "Not anymore." He laughed softly, pulling the blanket around both of us as we stepped back into the warm light of the house, into whatever came next. And that was how it began. Not with certainty, but with choosing each other anyway. Every day after that, we kept choosing.